NXT superstars prepare to step onto their brutal battleground. AEW's Forbidden Door really isn't all that forbidden. People still keep wondering who killed WCW, and the WWE returns across the Atlantic for yet another premium live event. Hello, my friends, and welcome to another exciting edition of the Royal Ramble. I am your host, Blaine the Brain, and for the next little while, I will be talking all about those topics and more as we get ready for another work week. Actually, before I talk about anything else, for those of you who missed it, interviews are back on my YouTube channel. I did a great one with Rising Ontario star Nikita this week, so I urge you to check it out. I posted the link in my own Facebook group as well as McGuire on Radio and Ontario Indie Wrestling, so you're likely to find it somewhere. Or you can just go directly to YouTube, and while you're there, feel free to subscribe to my channel. Nikita is on tonight's Neo Pro Wrestling event. She faces Casey Spinelli for the vacant women's title. TNA's Eric Young is also on the card in the headliner against the current Neo champion Tariq. So if you're in the Niagara Falls area for Comic-Con or really anything else, I encourage you to check it out. It's right across the street from Comic-Con with a 5 p.m. bell time, and it should be a good appetizer before NXT Battleground. Nikita also participated in the personality profile, which I promise to put up in the coming weeks. I know I keep saying that, and I've been procrastinating real hard, but those are always fun, and that's still to come. I also have ones that I did for the hosts of Poison Rana, Braden and Davey from Post Wrestling, as well as Mike McGuire, former host of SNME and current host of McGuire on Wrestling. Now then, switching gears, I do have a couple of previews to talk about, as well as my thoughts on the first episode of Who Killed WCW, but first, your weekly news brief. Following a successful surgery after suffering a broken tibia at last month's Double or Nothing event, AEW star Adam Copeland posted a video on Instagram this week of himself doing some light exercises on his road to recovery. It is still unknown how long he is expected to be out of action, but the average recovery time for an injury like this is roughly 4 to 6 months, meaning that in addition to missing Forbidden Door this month, he could also miss All In August. The WWE's Tiffany Stratton has reportedly signed with the Paradigm Talent Agency, as the 25-year-old stated in previous interviews that she has career aspirations to break into the Hollywood scene by the time she's 30. WWE Hall of Famer Nikki Bella has been announced as one of the celebrity contestants on the upcoming third season of The Traitors set to air in January 2025. Rising independent talent Edith Surreal announced her retirement on X this week due to injury. Fans may know her from Shakara, but she also competed for the Effie's Big Gay Brunch events in recent years, which were hosted by GCW. Surreal came out as transgender in 2020. The WWE recently announced a new championship belt to commemorate the next NHL Stanley Cup champions. I recall they did something similar with the NFL in recent years, and believe me, those belts are not cheap. Former MLW and TNA talent Alicia Etu is officially All Elite. She's reportedly been in a relationship with MJF for some time now, so this should come as no surprise. Former WWE Chairman Vince McMahon has apparently been denied access to WWE headquarters even as a visitor in the midst of his ongoing trial versus Janelle Grant, which was placed on pause last week pending further investigations. Things are not looking great for Vince. WWE Hall of Famer Jerry Lawler is involved in his own lawsuit, suing for $3 million in damages, claiming numerous failings by the county and jail around the death of his son Brian Christopher in 2018. Lawler's trial is set to begin on March 31st, 2025. And those are your major headlines of the week. Speaking of headlines, why are people still talking about WCW? The company closed its doors for good and was brought out by the WWE just over 23 years ago. Damn, I'm old. But apparently people just can't stop living in the past. I did happen to check out the first episode of Who Killed WCW this week, and it was pretty well what I expected. There was a lot of finger pointing, and most of those fingers were aimed at the same guy who was noticeably absent from the episode, but I wonder if Hulk Hogan chose not to appear knowing the truth would come out. Well, guess what? It's been out for about 30 years, and that's the thing. There wasn't a lot of new information. Everything that was said about Hogan, Bischoff, Russo, and the company was kind of common knowledge at this point. I don't know how they're going to make a full series out of this, but maybe there will be surprises along the way, though I'm not holding my breath. And neither should any fan, because tonight the UFC opens its home to the stars of NXT for the annual Battleground event at their Apex Arena in Las Vegas. We did see a few surprises in recent weeks, which now makes this show a must-see, so hopefully it lives up to the expectation. Let's take a look at the card. 6 women will enter their own Battleground in a ladder match to crown the first ever Women's North American Champion. There is a lot of talent here, but some I feel are much better suited for a match of this style. I think this will be a good opportunity for someone like Sol Ruca in particular. I can see this match kicking things off, and it would not surprise me if they end up putting the belt on Lash Legend here just because of her involvement and relationship with NXT champion Trick Williams. It's interesting that Mia Yim is in this match as she also competes on the main roster, but given her recent interactions with Nia Jax, I can see Nia interfering and costing her the match, which will open the door for someone like Fallon Henley to win the belt. She just turned, so if they don't intend to push her, I don't understand why they turned her in the first place. I pick Fallon to win. Shayna Baszler versus Lola Vice is a match that really just came out of nowhere. Sure, they've been teaming up lately, but the team just disintegrated almost as quickly as they came together. They will participate in the Underground match. I always find these matches very hard to follow, but I think it does no favors for Lola to lose. I think she has to convincingly put Shayna away and basically become the new badass of NXT. But then it got me thinking that Shayna also has a tag title match next week, so maybe Zoe Stark gets involved here, but I still think Lola should go over. The North American title is up for grabs in a triple threat with Oba Femi putting his belt on the line against Wes Lee and Mark Coffey. Or is it Joe Coffey? I can never tell them apart. It's weird that they went with the triple threat instead of a one-on-one, but I'd assume they did because they want to get the belt off Femi without him having to take the loss. So I think Gallus' involvement leads to Coffey winning the title over Lee, while the other two guys keep Femi occupied. More gold is up for grabs in the tag division as the makeshift team of Nathan Frazer and Axiom put their belts on the line against the OC. This could be a very good match. Given their involvement in the main event angle between AJ and Cody on SmackDown, I can see the OC taking the belts here, at least for a short run until that feud wraps up. And then the two big ones featuring outside talent being brought in. TNA Knockouts champion Jordynne Grace challenges Roxanne Perez for the NXT Women's title. I actually think this should main event the show, and it would not shock me if Grace wins the belt and takes it with her to TNA. She is scheduled for her own open challenge at Against All Odds next week, and I think that will be accepted by Roxanne, who may or may not win the TNA Knockouts title. There are endless possibilities here. Either they do a trade-off with Grace coming to NXT and Roxanne going to TNA, or they do a unification or title versus title match down the road. Either way, this could lead to some very interesting television for both companies. And then former free agent Ethan Page will challenge Trick Williams for the NXT heavyweight title. I'm not a huge fan of someone getting a title shot in their first match because if they lose, where do they go from here? That said, I don't know of the details of Page's contract. This could just be a one-time deal. I can see some kind of controversial finish where Williams pins Page with his foot under the rope, or they do some kind of double pin. Either way, I see this one continuing when NXT returns to Page's homeland of Canada in Toronto next month at Heatwave. And then, as I mentioned, the WWE will return overseas for another premium live event. It will be Clash at the Castle, which takes place on Saturday the 15th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. The event is headlined by Drew McIntyre versus Damian Priest for the WWE World title. It's a very weird dynamic to have heel versus heel, but I think they're banking on the idea that Drew will be a major babyface in Scotland, which I also have no doubt. This is a tough one because I can't see Priest facing Gunther at SummerSlam, but I also can't see Drew in that spot. Do they have CM Punk cost Drew the title again? They could go that way, but Punk will be booed out of the building. I can see Drew winning the belt here for a short run and then maybe losing it to Seth next month, which will lead to Seth versus Gunther and Punk versus Drew as your two top Raw matches for SummerSlam. And then Rhea returns to find Judgment Day with no titles left, and she has to pick up the broken pieces. I like Priest, but I still feel like he's a high mid-card guy. He doesn't feel main event level yet. On the SmackDown side, it was announced this week that AJ Styles and Cody Rhodes will do battle in an I Quit match for the Universal title. This is a feud that I can see continuing as well until they set things in motion for Rhodes versus Orton at SummerSlam. I can see a controversial ending here where AJ quits by either saying yes or tapping out, or something where he doesn't actually say the words "I quit," and then they go to a rematch at Money in the Bank. Bayley puts her women's title on the line against Scotland's own Piper Niven, who will probably also receive a major babyface reaction, though unlike Drew, I don't think there's a hope in hell of Piper walking out with the title. I think Bayley wins clean and then gets Nia at SummerSlam. More women's gold is on the line in the triple threat match as Bianca and Jade put their belts on the line against Shayna Baszler and Zoe Stark and the team of Alba Fire and Isla Dawn. I think a Bianca versus Jade program is in the works, potentially at SummerSlam, but it's a matter of when they do the turn. I can see Alba and Isla winning the titles, as Alba Fire is another Scotland native, and then they do the rematch with those two teams at Money in the Bank, and that's when you get the Bianca heel turn to set up her versus Jade at SummerSlam. And then the rematch for the Intercontinental title with Chad Gable challenging Sami Zayn. This should be a really good match, and I have thoroughly enjoyed Gable's character work lately. He's actually becoming my favorite character in all of wrestling. I think Gable takes another loss here after an Otis error costs him the match, and then he again publicly humiliates Otis on Raw, and Otis eventually snaps, leading to him versus Gable possibly at SummerSlam. So those are the next couple of shows. I don't think Heatwave is a premium live event, so I will only do my fantasy forecast for Money in the Bank in Toronto. Drew McIntyre versus Seth Rollins for the WWE World Heavyweight title. Cody Rhodes versus AJ Styles in a last man standing match for the Universal title. Alba Fire and Isla Dawn versus Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair for the women's tag team titles. Miz and R-Truth versus Alpha Academy for the Raw tag team titles. In the men's Money in the Bank match, Carmelo Hayes, Solo Sikoa, LA Knight, Braun Breaker, Damian Priest, Ilya Dragunov, and Ethan Page. In the women's Money in the Bank match, Tiffany Stratton, Blair Davenport, Naomi, Io Sky, Jordynne Grace, and Natalya. So that concludes another week. Note that there will be no new episode next weekend due to Father's Day, but I will return the following week with a full review of the WWE Clash at the Castle event and a preview of AEW Forbidden Door. Until then, I leave you with an ABC.